saw you've got to see a lot of wrestling legends down at Deep South Wrestling.
I did. I got to make Eric Bischoff take a picture with a beer in his hand with me because it was great because he was there before the show doing a favor for Nick Patrick and like was drinking before the show as you do because not everybody has a character where you can drink before, during, and after the show like I do. But so he was taking pictures with fans during intermission while I was doing commentary, and I walked over there and was like, "It's a." I always had the mindset before, like I don't take pictures with people, like the whatever. Like Eric Bischoff ushered in the era of wrestling that made me a fan, that made me a wrestler. So like he's literally like hiding the beer behind his leg with every fan, and I walk up to him and I go, "So we got to get a picture, Eric." And he's like, "All right." I was like, "But you can't hide your beer."
It's like my character is the boozerway. I need you to have a beer in your hand.
I didn't explain all of that. I was just like, "You've got to have your beer out." And she smiled and like said, "Cheers" to me. So yes, that's a cool picture. Now. With
Nice.
my so it's the beer and the surgically repaired arm too, which like I'm very self-conscious about. We've talked body dysmorphia and stuff before, and like it was funny because everybody I talked to like, "Oh, your recovery's going really well because your arm looks fantastic." And I'm like, "No, my arm's like a skinny friggin' noodle. I hate it." So it's all in the eye of the beholder.
You have the literal side-by-side comparison.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. So it's see, I bench pressed 135 pounds today for 3 sets of 8.
Nice.
When I'm not supposed to be grabbing anything in the hand heavier than 10 pounds.
Okay. Yeah. Not to say that it actually is half of a bench press. Maybe you're overloading on one side.
I was gonna say I definitely am compensating with one side, like I can feel it, but it's definitely more than 10 pounds on that side as well. So.
I was gonna say, eventually it'll catch up, and by that time they'll say like, "Oh, now you can lift 10 pounds," and you're like, "All right, I'm already ahead of the curve."
And I may have had a 50-pound dumbbell in that hand today. I will neither confirm nor deny in case for some reason my surgeon listens to our podcast.
It could be in your hand and still on the rack. Doesn't mean that
That's
you
true.
actually.
So I had to touch it. It's like, this feels good.
You're just gripping it like the knurling. This is a 50-pound dumbbell.
I just always love it. Every time I go to physical therapy, my physical therapist just tells me that I clearly know what I'm doing and have the knowledge. I'm like, you're welcome.
It's always a good feeling. I remember talking to my sister-in-law one time about something when she was going through PT school, and she's like, I can't remember. Oh, I needed a closed chain. She needed a closed chain exercise for somebody with a shoulder problem. I was like, oh, they could do pike push-ups. And she's like, how do you know what a closed chain is? It's like, well, it turns out I did learn something.
Turns out, I have this knowledge base. Yeah.
There are open chain exercises, there are closed chain exercises.
Well, because it always killed me that like the anatomy and physiology that I had to take for a physical education degree was the same for people that were pre-med.
Yeah, I was talking to, I can't remember what kind of doctor they are. I see them in the hospital all the time. When I was talking to them, and I mentioned something, and they said, "Oh, I wasn't aware that you guys had to take the classes you had to take." I was like, "We're on the same track, like until you go to med school and until I go to my dietetic internship. We're on the same thing."
People always want to dumb us down. Like, still, I think like anybody that knows anything about fitness and nutrition, they've got to be a dumb jock meathead. They can't actually know what they're doing. Yeah. But yeah, you said that's not what we're talking about. But a big part of my rehab has been making sure to work through the range of motion to get that range of motion back in my arms. So I've done a lot of both static and dynamic stretching.
Yeah. So when you refer to dynamic stretching, what are you talking about?
Dynamic stretching. So like stretching with movement, where it's just not just held. So not like ballistic stretching like you find in a lot of sports, but so dynamic stretching, I wouldn't even necessarily consider like proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation dynamic stretching, but I kind of want to because I like PNF stretching and I just like saying that term.
You like being really shaky and being pushed.
I like being really shaky and just like at a party just saying purpose of PNF for short, because it makes you sound smart. People get you like, and that debunks the dumb jock. Yeah.
Yeah. So dynamic stretching is stretching with some movement in it, right? As opposed to static stretching, which is what?
Static stretching is what we typically think of, I think, when people think of stretching, and a lot of the general population, I think, has a misnomer of like stretching and warm ups are the same thing. Okay, I'm getting ready for my workout. I'm warming up, and then they're stretching. Yeah, I think that's a typical one. If you're not watching the video version, you're like, oh, I'm going to stretch out my posterior deltoid.
Yeah,
Whatever. I'm going for a run. I'm gonna lift. I'm working out legs. And like, but that's the go-to that everybody does.
Yeah, that is true. It's funny because you're doing it with the first arm that Matt jumped to was his surgically repaired arm, and his
Yeah, it's
hand was
almost like
specifically on his tricep.
it's almost like I'm stretching that out 5 million times a day right now. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I appreciated with when we were getting prepared for this topic, I looked back through all of our podcasts. We've done a lot of podcasts at this point. None of them have been on stretching specifically. Not a single one.
I laugh and I shit on the fact that nobody prioritizes sleep. I think if there's something that people prioritize less than sleep, it's flexibility and stretching.
Yeah, maybe it could be. I don't know. I feel like they'd be really close on the hierarchy there. Especially if you go into any typical box gym, you're not going to see a lot of people stretching at any point in the day, outside of like a yoga class, right? So there's
right, like it's somebody that's like, yeah, say for instance, I'm going in, I'm getting my lifting in, getting my cardio in, and because I'm guilty of it too. I was literally just talking about this with a client last week that she needs to prioritize, like most people, stretching her hamstrings, stretching her hip flexors because it was causing an issue with her squatting technique. But I do the same thing. I'm like, okay, my hamstrings are tight, so I've got a finite amount of time to work out. Well, of course, I'm gonna get my lifting in. Got to get some cardio in. Yeah, I'll stretch tomorrow, and then tomorrow turns into 3 months later for a lot of people, and they're not prioritizing their flexibility training.
Yeah, when it comes to dynamic stretching and static stretching, they they shouldn't necessarily be done every single time. You don't have to do them all the time that you're going to go do any kind of exercise, but it would be helpful to have them most of the time. So dynamic stretching, I have a dynamic warm up that I utilize all the time, which is essentially dynamic stretching, where I do push ups, body weight. It's all body weight stuff, but push ups, some arm raises that are just my arm lifting it up and down, and arm circles that could be considered a dynamic stretch. Everybody knows what that is. Jumping jacks can also be considered a dynamic stretch effort.
Yeah, you've used the same warm up routine for God knows how long. Yeah, like I know when we've worked out in the past, yeah, you were doing the same thing.
Yeah, and because quintessentially it is you are loading the muscle through the full range of motion, and you're getting blood into the muscle through the muscle and working your joints, the joint connective pieces, and getting everything moving and warmed up in order to be specifically warmed up for whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah, which is especially important, like going into the next few months of this year. Like I'll see people walking to the gym. I work out 6 a.m. most mornings, and you see people, in there, like it's cold, it's frigid. They take off their hoodie, they walk in, and then all of a sudden they're putting 225 on the bench and going at it. It's like I'm waiting to see it back there.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people recently, I guess in the last couple of years here, have the quote unquote pump shirt. Like it's just like essentially a giant
right.
or long sleeve shirt to try and keep them and get them warmed up. You could just do 4 or 5 reps of something that's body weight and probably get yourself an effective warm up without having to have a sweater on. But
you gotta have that pump cover. Pump cover.
Yeah, pump cover. My bad, pump cover.
Pump cover.
And who cares? If you work hard enough for it, you should show it off. I
don't wear anything other than a tank top. So yes, side note with that, just because you reminded me of the story, this is fantastic. So yeah, I was working out on Saturday at the gym. Guy, probably in his mid-60s, got the string tank top on. Not like in awful shape, but not in shape to like be in a string tank top, because we've had that. I don't think we've had the discussion on the podcast. You and I've had that discussion plenty of times over like 20 years. But like just string tank top, nipple rings just on full display, gets his workout in, walks out and goes and gets in his Ferrari. And I'm like, that life goals. Like I've done everything wrong to this point.
Well,
but so like the best
you're not
right. But like so like you have we obviously UGA alum, you have all the UGA stuff behind you. So he goes out and he's he changes into another tank top because you got to be a little more modest when you're driving your convertible Ferrari. So it's like just showing the arms, like no nipple rings, and sticks on his Georgia Tech cap. And then the license plate on the Ferrari says "Thanks GT." And I'm like, is he like a professor at Georgia Tech? Because that's amazing. I'm like, I hope so. I'm gonna go take that guy's class.
Oh man, that's great. There's a lot of GT alumni around here, but there's also a lot of engineering stuff around here, so it makes sense. There's a lot of Georgia Tech, Texas A&M, Tennessee, a little bit of Alabama. There's a ton of Georgia here. You see,
like that makes sense with like the cross section of where you're at, like in North Carolina and the Southeast. The fun fact: the first surgeon I met with when I annihilated my ankle, that she wouldn't do the surgery because she was scared that I would never walk again. Georgia Tech alum. She got her undergrad at Georgia Tech.
Yeah, that's the one that counts. Usually not the one that, well, usually not the one that you get paid by, but the one that people will remember. The other side of this coin here that we're talking about is the static stretching side. That's good for post workout. You've done all of the things. You've put the blood flow's gone through. The blood is in your muscles. It's all there. You're still warm. Do your static stretching then to try and lengthen the muscle fiber. Like you're stretching it out to stretch it, right? Because now you've done all this work to make a lot of pulling and tightening concentric phase of any kind of lift. The static stretching is to stretch it back out. So I utilize static stretching mostly, and this is going to sound weird, on non-lift days after some kind of active recovery dynamic effort stretching amount. Like I'm just doing the dynamic effort or an active recovery stuff to get blood flow going. Usually I'm sore or something and I can't lift anything anyways. Otherwise I'd probably hurt myself. And I'm just trying to get blood flow back into my muscles to help with the soreness.
Yep.
Instead of just jumping into stretching, because that would cause more damage than good.
Yeah, I'm typically kind of the same way. I tend to get more static stretching done on non-lifting days. Like my go-to like active recovery is going for a walk. Like I love going for a walk if the weather's nice. Go out, especially where I live. I walk up to Truist Park. It's a mile away from me, and walk back. So I got a nice little leisurely 2-mile walk. Come back, stretch for 10 minutes after it. Boom, done. And then yeah, I feel better. It's great. Feel better physically. Feel better mentally. It's my active mental recovery as well.
Yeah. Do you walk all the way around the park and walk back?
Depends on the amount of time I have, and like what I want out of the walk. Like, because like it's 9/10 of a mile to the third base gate from my place, and it's like 2 flights of stairs. Sometimes I'll walk up there and walk back. Sometimes I'll walk to the Battery, which if you're not from Atlanta is kind of their little bar and food stuff, little outside shops and everything. So sometimes I'll walk up there and I'll grab a beer. It's a it's open container. You walk around, drink your beer, and then I head back. Like yeah, so it kind of depends. So anywhere from 1.8 miles to 2.5 sometimes.
Yeah. So by that time, you're got plenty of blood moving in you, doing the 2.5 miles, or even just 1.8 miles. You're not. I know Matt. Matt doesn't walk slow, right? So
No, it pisses me off to be in public when people are walking slow.
yeah.
It physically hurts my knees, surgically repaired knees and ankles.
Yeah, he needs the blood flow to keep going in there. That should be for those of you out there that are listening. You have knee problems. Slowly elevate your amount of movement. It's going to help out your knee pain. Just getting into the movement, getting things going.
Get some synovial fluid moving through there. Get a little blood. Yeah.
Yeah. And then do you do the dynamic stretching like as soon as you're done walking? Or not the static stretching as soon as you're done walking?
Yeah, I usually like cool like if it's been a brisk walk, I'll slow down the walk so I get the heart rate down, so I'm not just stopping. But yeah, then it's usually pretty soon right after walk back up to the apartment, and get a little stretch in, and then I'm set.
Right. Yeah. So it's exactly the same as if you're working out. You're not gonna rack the bench and then start your static stretching right there. You're gonna rack the bench. You should take the weights off, re-rack your weights,
Because I want to beat your ass if you don't.
and
Yeah.
then move over to some other area away from the bench, so that way other people can utilize the bench, and then do your static stretching. The blood is still there. It's not going to be magically gone immediately from you stopping. But
Oh no, I didn't stop and stretch right after my set. Yeah, now I've got to warm up again.
yeah, the reason why you don't do it before you work out is because chances are you didn't go from doing some kind of vigorous, moderate to vigorous physical activity leading up to your workout. You probably are like the vast majority of Americans, where you're doing some um, kind of low level activity work where your body's not in doing a lot of effort, and then you got to the gym, or you're coming from your house where you were asleep and just brushing your teeth and going to the gym. Chances are you haven't done a bunch of stuff that's going to have a total body effect of blood flow like a brisk walk would. Right? So reserve your static stretching for after a workout. Do your dynamic stretching prior to a workout. So,
There, I feel like you could have said that, and it would have been like the shortest podcast we've done. You saved the true nugget for the end.
so it goes sometimes. But if you want to figure out how we set up programs and things like that, sign up for your free meet and greet at franchisenf.com. Otherwise, like we say every week, maximize every bite.
Maximize every rep.